What do you think, Carl?
It was an historic day today, and it will be an historic vote tomorrow. Not necessarily tomorrow a great day for America, because we've seen over the last nearly 20 years increasing polarization over the Supreme Court. Back when Bill Clinton nominated Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 94% of Republicans supported her confirmation. 75% of Republicans supported Clinton's nomination of Stephen Breyer. 50% of Democrats supported John Roberts' nomination by George W. Bush. Only 10% of Democrats supported Alito. And tomorrow, 1 out of 48 Democrats, excuse me, 49 Democrats will support the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. That's a sad day for America.
I'm wondering what the political fallout will be. You know, you hear from Democrats who were saying, if this guy gets in, that's going to help us. You heard Republicans fearing that if he didn't get in, the same thing in reverse, that it was going to help them. How does that all fall out?
Well, we've had a couple of pieces of information this week about how it is settling out, and that is the Harvard-Harris poll and the National Public Radio poll both indicated that Republican enthusiasm to vote in the fall elections has jumped dramatically in the last month. For example, in the NPR poll, it went from the Democrats were 78% considered the election to be very important, to 68% for Republicans. It's now today 82 for Democrats, 80 for Republicans, up 4 for Democrats, and up 12 for Republicans. So it's clearly given a bigger bump for Republicans. My sense is that there's going to be a small, well, I don't know how small, but there's going to be a relatively small negative impact for the Democrats after this. You may have seen that letter recently from sort of 10, I think it was 10 large left-wing groups inside the Democratic orbit who sent a letter to Schumer saying, if you can't stop Kavanaugh, we're going to hold you personally responsible. So my sense has always been whoever loses this vote is going to see an impact. I think it'll be modest, but it could be in some races dispositive, because we're going to have a lot of very close contests, particularly in purple states and purple districts.
Would it still be a good idea to have Mike Pence around, though, tomorrow? I mean, his vote technically wouldn't be necessary. I guess it's 51-48 now if you view that Steve Daines from Montana doesn't have to leave his daughter's wedding. But how does this play out?
Well, I do think you want to have the vice president standing by. This, you know, back in when we had a 50-50 Senate, in the early days of the Bush administration, the vice president was constantly up on the Hill on even procedural matters. And look, what we're going to have is we're going to have 48 Democrats voting no. We're going to have, it looks like, 50 Republicans voting yes, minus Daines. So we'll have 49 Republicans president voting yes, and one other giving his daughter away at her wedding, and then Manchin. So we will have then 50 to 49 is going to be the vote. So yeah, you want to have the vice president standing by in the event a Republican gets caught in traffic or somehow unable to vote, and it's a 49-49 tie.
Now, of course, they have 30 hours of debate. We're about 5 or so hours into that. Do you think they use that full amount of time?
I would suspect they might, because the Democrats are going to do everything they can to sort of talk about this and to occupy time and delay. You know, the Senate used to be a place of real debate. You know, we remember as school children learning about, Daniel Webster, the Webster-Haynes debate over nullification, and these great, Henry Clay, and these great champions of America having debates. That's died away. But I got to tell you, in the mid 50s, a woman senator from Maine, Margaret Chase Smith, gave a famous speech that began the end of Joe McCarthy's influence in the Senate and in American politics. And today we saw another Republican woman from Maine give an extraordinary speech. That was riveting. It was thoughtful. It was clearly she had given a great deal of consideration of what she wanted to say and how she said it. We're going to spend a lot of time to how she dealt with the questions of sexual assault allegations. But the first part of the speech was a methodical review of the charges made about Brett Kavanaugh. And we saw there Susan Collins dealing with them. Here's what the charge was, and here's how she had reviewed and investigated and come to a different conclusion than the charge. I thought it was a masterful speech and one of those rare moments where a speech on the floor was substantive and thoughtful and dealt with a difficult issue and may not influence minds inside the Senate given the partisanship there, but it's certainly, I think, going to influence the minds of those that watched it on television.
No, she did lay it out beautifully. I'm thinking of, I'm a real conservative. I heard what she had to say about precedent and Roe v. Wade and all of that, where I might be scratching my head and say, whoa, 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 what did you say?
Yeah. Yeah, well, but she was methodical about it.
Absolutely.
And she clearly explored these questions with Kavanaugh when she met with him. Remember, she met with him for an hour after the issue came up about sexual assault charges, but she had previously met with him and methodically gone over his judicial record. Look, I've known her a long time. I have enormous respect for and affection for her, but she has approached this in a very serious fashion and set out to arrive at her own conclusions.
Well put, as were her remarks. Thank you very much, Karl Rove.